You ever had a hard week at work, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and things are just beating you down, and boy, you feel rough. Everybody just wants to work you to death, and they expect you to give everything you got all the time and just be flawless every day. Does that wear you out? How does it make you look? How does it make you feel? Sometimes we got to pamper ourselves. We got to go out and spoil ourselves a little bit with some spa treatment, Go and sit in the steam or in a hot tub, even a cool pool, whatever, but pamper yourself, and boy, you feel better after that. So how do you think your table saw feels? You expect that table saw to perform every day, whether that table saw is ready for it or not. And then you get upset if something's not working right, or the wood's not feeding over the table good, and oh, there's rust on my table. Well, guess what? You're abusing that table saw. You need to take some time and you need to pamper that tool. So we're going to go to the Pampered Powertool Spa. And we're going to pamper our power tools a little bit. So I'm going to take some time. I got a table saw here that I just recently purchased. It's a saw stop table saw. Love it. But sat in a garage for a while, and the kids at the guy's house, they set some sweaty pops on there. And you know what happens when you set a sweaty pop on a steel table? You get a beautiful little rust ring on there. So there's a few of those on here. Some glue that got left on there and dried, and rust spots. So in this video, I'm going to show you what I do, what I've done for a long time to keep my table saws pretty pristine. It's super easy maintenance. It's nothing that you got to drop even an hour of your day. You don't even have to do that to do this once you get them conditioned. So it's conditioning the tops, and we're going to use some different types of waxes, and we're going to wax those tops, but the wax goes on real quick, and it's something you can do every day when you start. It's like maybe putting your sunblock on before you hit the job site, just because you don't want to get burned up. Well, we can put a little wax on this. It takes 30 seconds. You wipe it, and it's ready to go. So your tabletops don't ever rust. Your material runs through real smooth, and your table saw always looks bright and shiny and ready for work. Some other stuff maybe on the inside too. We'll clean out the guts of the saw a little bit and get the gears working with some dry lubrication. And you don't want to use the wet stuff because then sawdust sticks to it and it's no good. So my glasses are steaming up because I think my spa is ready to go. I'll be back, ready for action. We're gonna pamper our power tool. Stay with us. All right, here we are, back with the table saw, and we're gonna pamper it up right. We're gonna make this table saw feel real good about itself, and we're gonna feel real good about using it. Let me grab that camera real quick. I'll kind of show you what I'm looking at. Pardon that real amateur camera operating stuff. But if you look here on the surface, this is what I was talking about. Notice the rust spots and the streaks, and there's some rings from pops and fingerprints from sweaty hands, and stuff that you just don't want on the surface of your saw. So we're going to get that stuff knocked off first. And this is what I mean by conditioning the saw top, is we're going to clean it up as good as we can. And I'm going to first spray it with some penetrating oil that actually beats up rust and eats it up real good. And then I'll let that sit for just a little bit. And I'm going to go over it with some 400 grit waterproof sandpaper. And when I do, I always sand with the direction of feed. Don't put it on your orbital sander and think you're going to outsmart and do it all quicker, because then you're going to leave swirly marks all over. And it actually will kind of create a little bit of resistance when you're running your stuff over, because it's going in one direction and you got scratches going in the other. So when you're going to scratch this saw up, to just sand it a little bit to clean off that rust, you want the scratches to be in line with the direction that you're running that material. So then the waxes and stuff that we're going to put in it are going to act as a lubricant, and your wood's just going to slide right over that stuff, just like slipping something over hot oil. It's nice. So I'm gonna get this kind of set up. I might do a little narrative deal while I'm doing this and let you watch, and I'll get these other products pulled off the tabletop, but these are some of them that we use real quick. You can put ceramic wax on here. This stuff, when you apply it and you buff it in, it is super duper hard, and it takes a lot to get it off, but it's very, very slick, and no water will penetrate it. I like to use the blaster stuff when I'm busting down my rust. It eats up that rust really good. But you don't want to leave this on your tabletop, because then all your wood's going to have this oil residue in it. Nah, see, you don't like that.
Ew, that's
dry
yucky.
lube. Go to the store and get yourself some dry lube. This stuff, when you put it on your gears, your worm gears and stuff, and underneath, it will leave a real slick surface, but yet the sawdust doesn't like to stick to it. You know, if you use like WD-40 or something, that stuff is wet lubricant, and the first board you run through, all that sawdust is going to stick right to all your gears, and you're going to wonder why it's just it takes forever. You know, it's really hard to crank it because you got sawdust in all your gears. This stuff works really good. I found this Ultimate Compound stuff. It's for cars, but you shake this up and you apply it, and then you buff that off. This is a great top coat. Even things like turtle wax. You can put turtle wax down and do the same thing. There's actually wood paste wax that you can use too. Really any kind of wax. I mean, I don't know what all the special compounds are and all that. I'm not a chemist. I'm a wood shop teacher, okay? So maybe some of you chemists are like, well, you can't put that on. I don't know. I've never had any bad results from using any of these car waxes. Carbon choke cleaner. You want to use that on stuff that you want to blast some of the other crud off, and it'll blast it off good, and it dries really fast, and it doesn't leave an oily residue. And so this might be what you want to clean some of your internal parts with if they're really kind of cruddy and dirty. So this might be something to purchase. Lastly, my quick wipes in the morning before I get started. I'll just spray it with a little bit of Pledge and buff that stuff. And yeah, it's got water in it because that's how it comes out of the spray can. But then when that wax bonds with the metal top and you buff that, it creates a waterproof barrier. So then oxygen can't get to your tabletop, which oxygen causes oxygenation, which causes
oxidation,
rust.
not oxygenation.
So
Who
we
is this guy?
make a barrier between the outside atmosphere and our table saw top with wax. And then the wax is also a slick surface to run your wooden stuff across. So I like to put this on real quick in the morning if I'm going to run a lot of wood. You buff it, shines everything up good, and there you go. So we're going to get after it. Watch. Take the blade out so you don't run into that. Got the blade out. So now I'm just gonna hit my surface with this blaster stuff, and I'll kind of wipe that in, and that's gonna break down that rust. It's already on my surface. This, you're gonna have to take a break and let this stuff soak in. I'm gonna put it on my fence rails too, because that's gonna help. There's a little bit of rust spots on there too, and that's gonna break that stuff down. So I'll just rub that in. I'll let that oil do its thing, and then I'll come back and I'll sand that, and that'll be on the next segment. So I'll be right back. I'm gonna cut and come back after we're done sanding. Okay, so we let the oil soak in for a good couple hours, and now I'm going to go ahead and start sanding off some of that really cruddy stuff and working it off. This is a process. This is not going to be, oh, quick, I'm just going to do this in 1 minute and get done. You're going to take some time getting some of that rust worked off, depending on how much it's built up. So I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and go through it. I'll get started a little bit, show you the motions, and then we'll break and I'll go to the next segment after we get this part done, where we get it all cleaned up, and then we'll start applying our waxes and things. So I start off with a 400 grit. It's a waterproof sandpaper, and then I put it on a block so that way it's flat. And then I just start in one area, and I start sanding with the direction of feed. And that's already removing a bunch of that rust that was on there. Remember, don't go in circles. You need to just keep going in that same direction that you feed that wood across that saw. The oil is actually acting as a lubricant, and it's actually penetrating into the metal a little bit, so these particles can reach down in there and actually grab that rust and lift it up. I'm going to clean this up, and then maybe I'll bring the camera over real quick and I'll wipe that, and I'll show you the difference between before and after, I guess. And if you work over an area and you look at it, you're not super happy with it, then wipe that down, re-oil it, and do it again. So what we're looking at, real quick, that's the difference there. What it's going to look like when you're done kind of wiping it, and then once you get all that rust off of there, and wipe that residue off from what you were working with, so you can see the difference between this and that. I think you can right here. Yeah, that and this, and how much it's cleaned just that little bit up. So by the time I get done with this whole surface, all that rust is going to be gone. Maybe some tiny faint spots of it, but then after that, it'll be beautiful. It'll be smooth, and we'll wax that and buff it, and it'll shine, and that table saw is going to be so happy, and so are you. So I'm going to get back to work, and the beauty of video is I'm going to get all my work done, and then I'm going to turn the camera back on, and you can see what I got done. So we'll do that real soon. So now, after we got it all sanded, and then we rubbed all the gooey, yucky black stuff off, it reveals a nice, clean finish, and all that rust is pretty much gone. There was some stuff that was really pretty deep into the pores, and we managed to get that stuff pretty well off. Right now, though, it's really smooth, and now it's ready for some wax. So that's the next step. Wax on, wax off. Ew, look at that. So that's what I'm going to choose to go with for this first application. You can use a lot of different types of paste waxes. I like turtle wax because it buffs really pretty clear, and it goes on nice. It's a little creamier than some of that other stuff. Like if you use a paste wax for furniture, that stuff it's pretty hard, and it rubs in a little tougher. So I choose to do this. You can use paste wax for furniture, a lot of different other car waxes, but this is your first application to get this set up because we're conditioning the tops. All right, we're gonna layer a bunch of wax on here, so we don't really have to do this over and over all the time. But this first initial layer is going to be our foundation, basically, and then we're going to go over it with another little wax compound. It's a little more liquidy. Buff it in, and the tops will be ready to go. So just going to take a little bit of this turtle wax, and then you just do little circles all the way across the surface of the tool. The other thing you could do, and I did this to mine, is I went along that fence. It had some rough spots on it, and I sanded it a little bit, hit some spots with some steel wool, cleaned off all the rust there, and I'm going to wax that whole track too. Because when you're sliding your fence, you want your fence to be sliding on slick stuff. So wax the rails of your fence. Wherever the plastic buffers on the bottom are rubbing on that fence, you want that to be all waxed up nice and smooth too. So I'll do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and rub this stuff on and do my little circles. We'll let this wax set up. Don't go real thick. If you can see lots of goobers on there, it's too thick and you might have some trouble actually buffing that off. So just make sure you've just put a little film across the entire surface of the saw, and then it'll buff off nice. It'll kind of, we call it burn in a little bit better, because you can buff it quicker and it just goes into the wood, not the wood, the metal goes into the metal a little bit better. So I'm gonna buff this in. I'm gonna play a little music and you can watch me do this. And then we're gonna take and knock this off. Like a wise man once said one day to a kid learning how to do karate: wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. So we're gonna wax on. One last trick. Wax your table saw fence. It's got to slide. If you got wax on wax, that baby will slide like nobody's business. One finger all the way across. So I'll do little plastic spots, the tabs on the inside, just hit those real quick. Flip it over. Wax the little plastic tabs on the inside. While you're at it, you might as well wax everything. It's just gonna protect it a little bit better than having nothing. And I'll even wax the underside of the fence, because that plywood that it slides on, sometimes that stuff can get caught up too. So don't be afraid to wax that. Okay, it's seemingly like 200 degrees in my shop right now because I don't have air conditioning, and the heat index is supposed to get up to 110 today, so it's a little bit less than that, but it's hot. So that wax is probably already dried and set up, even in this time that we've been doing this. So I'm just gonna jump in and start buffing it. Make sure you use a pretty good buffing rag. I like to use those microfiber towels. You can go to I went to Sam's and bought this giant bundle of, I don't know, there must have been 20 or 30 of them stupid things in there, and I bought them for, I don't know, they were two bucks a piece. But you can throw them in the washer and wash them and reuse them, and man, they're good for waxing and buffing and cleaning windows, cleaning off your furniture, dusting, all that cool stuff. And drying. Wash your car. Yeah, they work great. So I'm gonna grab one of those. microfiber towel. Now, if you got one of them fancy buffer deals, yeah, by all means, knock yourself out. Grab the buffer and get after it. All I got's a grinder. Didn't buy the buffer attachment for it, so I'm going old school. You noticed I waxed the T-slides. Yeah, you want your miter gauge to slide nice too, and wouldn't even hurt to wax your miter gauge while you're pampering your power tool. So now that we got that done, the top's pretty well conditioned, but I got one more thing we can do, a quick step, and that's gonna seal it up really well. And you shouldn't have to do this every day, maybe, I don't know, depending on the use of the saw and how much you're running through it, I'd say every other week. But this last application is something you can do every morning or every evening before you start. It's super quick because you're gonna spray this stuff on and wipe it off, because I use now Pledge furniture polish, so it even has a lemony fresh scent, or you can get the orange, whatever you like. I'll do the whole top, because even the Formica on the side, man, it slickens that stuff up too and makes it nice and shiny, and it really looks impressive. So I just treat the whole top of the table. Oh, tip of the week. Don't get this stuff on your floor. Whoop! You'll be on your butt when you go around the side of that table saw. How do I know? I did that. Let that set for a few seconds and you're ready to buff. Now, while we're waiting for that to set up, what I didn't video that. I had a hard time getting any camera angles to show it. But for my saw stops and pretty much any saw in general, you take the blade out, tilt that blade all the way to 45, and then you can get to that worm gear that's in there. And you want to clean that worm gear off real good. Compressed air, maybe a brush, toothbrush, get all the sawdust junk off of it. And then you spray it with dry lube. And this just happens to be the brand Blaster, but the dry lube, it's not super sticky. It goes on real quick and just kind of has a really cool shell that it puts on there that's dry. And if you do WD-40 or something like that, that's wet. What does sawdust stick to? Wet stuff. You don't want sawdust all over your gears and your table saw, so use a dry lube and lube any moving part that you can find in there. Crank the handles, see what's spinning, what's turning, give it some shots, and you'll be amazed how you can raise and lower the blade with 1 or 2 fingers, how you can tilt the blade with 1 or 2 fingers, and there's just no fighting it. And then when it starts stiffening up, do the process again. But keep pampering your power tool. Okay, I'm gonna buff this and shine it. It's gonna be all beautiful. Oh, you're such a sexy saw. Ooh, ooh, yeah. So smooth. Look at that. Huh? Woo! Nothing to it. And the inside's all lubricated and ready to go. Let's one sexy table saw right there. So he, she, or I, or it and I, we're ready to go to work. Work's gonna be so much better. So do that every once in a while. Take your table saw to the spa and pamper it a little bit. It'll treat you so much better. You'll have a good relationship with that saw. You won't hate that saw. That saw's gonna love you. All right, so give that a shot. Maybe later on, some other videos, we'll find some other power tools that need pampering from time to time, and I'll do some segments on those. But for now, pamper your power tools. Get on that saw, take it to the spa. Have fun.